What do you do when someone in your life poisons every interaction? Draining your energy, sabotaging your progress, and thriving on your weakness. Ignoring them doesn't work. Confronting them directly only fuels their fire. Today, you will learn how to crush toxic people so completely that they'll never dare rise against you again. Never fight them on equal ground. This is the first and most vital principle when dealing with toxic people. They want you to step into the swamp where they thrive, where emotions rule over reason, and chaos becomes the dominant force. If you allow yourself to fight them in that place, you have already lost. They are designed for it. They breathe in drama like oxygen. They feed on conflict the way a wolf feeds on blood. To face them directly, raw anger or blind confrontation, is to grant them the battleground they have been waiting for. You must understand that toxic people are masters at twisting words, at pulling strings, at turning your own reactions into weapons against you. The moment you raise your voice, the moment you argue back on their terms, they have already gained the upper hand. Instead, your strength must lie in refusal. Not weakness, not avoidance, but strategic refusal. Imagine two fighters. One is skilled in close combat, dirty tactics, quick strikes. The other refuses to enter the pit, forcing the fight into a space of his choosing, an open field, where those tricks no longer work. That is how you must think. The toxic person thrives in argument and emotional escalation, so deny them those weapons. Be silent where they expect rage. Be calm where they seek to provoke. Answer their venom with indifference, not because you lack the ability to strike back, because you refuse to swing blindly where they control the terrain. There is great power in composure. The toxic person relies on reaction. Without your reaction, their poison has no vessel to travel through. Think of their insults, their provocations, their manipulations as arrows. These arrows require a target, a body to pierce, an opponent who raises his shield in panic. When you remain still, when you refuse to engage on their terms, their arrows fall harmlessly to the ground. They grow frustrated, desperate, and eventually sloppy. A toxic person exposed to silence and composure will always reveal their true weakness. Their hunger for chaos is also their undoing. Yet this is not passivity. To some, silence may look like inaction, but in truth it is tactical repositioning. You are not surrendering the battle, you are moving it to ground where victory is certain. This requires patience, discipline, and an iron control over your emotions. Many will fail here because the instinct is to retaliate, to prove oneself, to not look weak. But strength is not in noise. Strength is in command. The one who dictates the terms of the fight holds all the power, and by refusing to play their game, you are forcing them into yours. Consider how a ruler deals with rebellion. If he runs into the mob, swinging wildly, he may win a few moments of control. The mob thrives on chaos and numbers. Instead, a ruler separates, isolates, starves the rebellion until its fire burns out. That is your approach to the toxic person. Separate them from the arena they crave. Isolate them from the emotional fuel they need. Starve them of attention, of reaction, of the satisfaction of dragging you into their pit. Soon, they are no longer the confident manipulator, but a desperate figure lashing into emptiness. But do not mistake this strategy for kindness. This is not ignoring them in the hopes they will vanish on their own. It is calculated denial. Every word you do not give, every reaction you withhold, is a blade removing their power piece by piece. You are not fleeing from battle. You are stripping them of weapons. And once they are unarmed, once their influence crumbles, because you never granted them the fight they wanted, you can strike with precision at the right moment. Never fight them on equal ground also means controlling your environment. If they whisper in private, bring the matter to light where they cannot twist your words. If they provoke in a crowd, deny them the scene by answering with calm indifference that leaves them looking like the only fool in the room. Toxic people thrive when others believe their illusions, when their poison is spread unchallenged. By refusing to grant them that arena, you are not just protecting yourself, you are forcing the entire audience to see their weakness. They depend on shadows, you drag them into the light. Above all, you must train your mind not to bend under their pressure. The toxic person is skilled at making you feel cornered, as though you have no choice but to engage. That is their greatest lie. You always have the choice to step back, to breathe, to remove yourself from the snare they set. And when you refuse to fight where they are strongest, you remind them, and everyone watching, that true power is not found in who yells the loudest or strikes the hardest in the mud, but in who decides the field on which battles are fought. Turn their own weapons against them. This is the art of inversion, the strategy of reflecting the venom of the toxic person back upon themselves. Those who thrive on deceit, manipulation, and subtle sabotage believe they are clever. They are convinced that no one sees their moves, that their whispers will remain hidden, that their masks are unbreakable. But the truth is this: every weapon they use can be twisted, redirected, and made to cut deeper into their own flesh. The key is not to oppose their lies with simple truth, but to use their very methods as a mirror. When they seek to entangle you, it is they who must find themselves bound. When they weave webs of deception, it is they who must become caught in the strands. The first step in this method is understanding their nature. Toxic people repeat patterns. Their tricks are not as unique as they imagine. They spread rumors, but their words are inconsistent. They manipulate, but their manipulation requires predictability. They must know how their target reacts. Once you recognize the rhythm of their attacks, you no longer face mystery, but a script. And when you can predict their lines, you can prepare your response before they even open their mouth. The predator is reduced to prey because you are no longer surprised. You are waiting. To turn their weapon against them, you must embrace subtlety. Loud declarations and direct accusations rarely succeed, for toxic people thrive in denial and reversal. If you confront them head-on, they will twist the story until you appear guilty. But if you quietly feed them false confidence, if you allow them to believe they are in control, they will dig their own grave. Give them a piece of bait, a story to spread, a path to follow. They will take it eagerly, for their hunger to manipulate blinds them to caution. And when they have fully committed, when their lies are laid bare for all to see, you simply step aside and let the trap close. Their downfall appears as their own doing, not your hand. Another method is exposure through exaggeration. A toxic person thrives in shadows, speaking in hints, creating uncertainty. When they whisper, amplify their words openly. Repeat them in public with a sharp clarity. Suddenly, their poison loses its effect, because what was meant to be secret now stands naked before all. They are forced into defense, scrambling to explain, while you remain calm and deliberate. Their weapon, secrecy and rumor, has been stripped of its power, and they become the author of their humiliation. There is also strength in patience. Toxic person rarely knows silence. They must act, they must sow, they must stir. This constant activity leaves trails. Lies contradict lies, manipulations collapse under the weight of time. If you hold your ground and wait, documenting, remembering, allowing their chaos to accumulate, you will eventually possess enough proof to destroy them completely. When the time comes to reveal the contradictions, to lay the threads side by side, the weapon they once used has become the rope that hangs them. To wield this strategy requires detachment. You cannot take their words personally, for that is their greatest trap. The moment you allow anger to cloud your vision, you will miss the openings they create. Instead, you must study them like a specimen, observing calmly, noting weaknesses. Think of them as architects of their own ruin, constantly building structures of deceit, while you quietly remove the foundation brick by brick. Eventually, the structure collapses, and no one believes their voice again. The brilliance lies not in attacking them directly, but in ensuring that every move they make pulls them closer to destruction. Consider the gossip they spread. You do not silence it by protesting. You allow them to speak, to grow bold, and then you expose the falsehood with undeniable evidence. Suddenly, the very weapon they wielded now destroys their credibility. Or consider their manipulative tactics. Instead of resisting blindly, you play along, nodding, agreeing until they overextend themselves. Then, at the right moment, you reveal the strings they tried to pull, and the world sees not your weakness, their deceit. In both cases, their tool becomes the instrument of their downfall. The toxic person is addicted to control. They thrive when others dance to their tune. But the irony is that this addiction blinds them. When you appear compliant, when you give them the illusion that their tricks are working, they grow careless. They mistake your patience for weakness. And it is in that overconfidence that you strike. You reveal the lie. You show the manipulation. You make visible what they believed invisible. Their power evaporates instantly because it was never true power. It was an illusion, dependent on secrecy. Once revealed, it dies. There is no satisfaction greater than this to watch the toxic person collapse under the weight of their own tactics, to see them devoured by the very shadows they thought would protect them. They believe themselves masters of deception, but they are slaves to it. And when you learn to turn their weapons back upon them, they become nothing more than victims of their own poison. Destroy their influence, not just their words. This is where the true battle lies. A toxic person is rarely dangerous because of what they say directly to you. Their real power comes from the invisible network they create, from the ears they poison, from the reputation they tarnish when you are not present to defend yourself. To merely argue with them is like cutting off the head of a serpent while leaving its venom to spread through the body. If you want to eliminate their threat completely, you must dismantle the stage on which they perform. You must take away their audience, their credibility, their ability to persuade others. Without influence, they are nothing but noise carried away by the wind. The first step is to understand that a toxic person is always performing. Their attacks are not solely for you. They are for everyone watching. They want to shape perception, to turn allies into skeptics, to create doubt where there should be certainty. This is why direct confrontation almost never succeeds. Even if you silence their voice in one moment, the damage has already been planted in the minds of others. A rumor whispered is more powerful than a truth shouted if the rumor is left unchecked. So you cannot simply defend yourself against their words. You must strike at the deeper source of their power, the belief that they can be trusted. Reputation is their armor. Influence is their weapon. Strip both away and the toxic person becomes exposed. To do this, you must act not in haste, but with deliberate precision. Do not rush to destroy them, for destruction without evidence makes you appear the aggressor. Instead, let them build the stage higher and higher. Let them climb it with confidence, believing that their charm, their lies, their half-truths will carry them upward. The higher they climb, the further they fall when you finally cut the ropes. Gather their contradictions. Collect their false promises. Expose their hypocrisy at the right moment, not just to them, but to those who once listened to them. When their audience sees the mask fall, there is no recovery. A man can argue against one opponent, but he cannot argue against the loss of his own credibility in the eyes of all. The key is subtle erosion. Do not allow them to sense your intent too early. If they feel you rising against them, they will tighten their grip on others, doubling their manipulation. Instead, weaken them quietly. Offer clarity where they sow confusion. Build trust where they spread doubt. Position yourself as the voice of stability, reason, and strength, while their voice is revealed as the voice of chaos. Influence is not destroyed by direct assault. It is replaced. The toxic person loses power when others begin to look to you instead. And once you command their audience, the toxic figure shrinks into irrelevance. Observe how quickly supporters vanish when credibility crumbles. A toxic person rarely has loyal allies. They have useful pawns. These pawns remain so long as they believe the toxic figure is strong, clever, or untouchable. But when exposed, the pawns scatter. No one wishes to be associated with failure. This is why your task is not merely to refute lies, to strip away the illusion of power that sustains them. You must make others see that their influence was always a fraud, that their strength was borrowed, that their words were empty. Once the shift takes place, their name carries no weight, their speech no longer echoes. They may continue to talk, no one listens. It is not enough to silence them privately. That only spares you. You must neutralize them publicly, so they can never wield the same poison against others again. Do not think of this as vengeance, but as strategy. A toxic person thrives because others are drawn into their narrative. If you remove their ability to influence, you are not only freeing yourself, also ensuring they cannot infect anyone else. What is crushed here is not the individual, but the network of deceit they built around themselves. Consider the battlefield of reputation. Once someone is marked as a liar, as a manipulator, as untrustworthy, every word they speak in the future is weighed with suspicion. Even truth becomes powerless in their mouth, because the memory of their deceit lingers. That is the true victory, not in silencing their current words, but in ensuring all future words fall on deaf ears. This kind of defeat is permanent. The toxic person can attempt to rebuild, but every step will be haunted by their past exposure. This requires patience, but patience guided by strategy. You do not need to shout louder than them. You need only shine the right light at the right time. One revelation, one undeniable truth, one moment where their own behavior betrays them in the eyes of all is enough to tear apart the foundation of influence they worked so hard to construct. When influence dies, they are left powerless, reduced to the emptiness they tried to hide, crushed with finality, not pity. This is where most fail when dealing with toxic people, because the human instinct is to hesitate, to believe that mercy will change them, that forgiveness will reform them, that patience will soften their venom. But a toxic person is not built to change. Their entire survival depends on manipulation, on deceit, on drawing life from those around them like a parasite. To show pity is to hand them another chance to rebuild, to sharpen their knives in the shadows, and to return stronger, more cunning, more dangerous than before. Finality is the only answer. Mercy, in this case, is not compassion, it is weakness. When you decide to deal with a toxic person, you must first accept the truth. They will never stop unless forced. Words will not change them. Emotional appeals will not touch them. Promises of reform are nothing more than stalling tactics designed to gain time until their influence can be restored. Every second you delay, they gather more strength. Every opening you give, they slip back in. That is why hesitation is fatal. Once you have recognized the poison, the cure must be absolute. You do not leave traces of infection in the body, because those traces will spread again. You burn it out completely. Finality means cutting them off from every path back into your life. If they thrive on communication, you sever it entirely. If they exist in your circle, you remove them without explanation, without compromise. If they hold power in an organization or community, you dismantle it publicly so they cannot hide in whispers. And you do so with the resolve of steel, without apology. The toxic person will always attempt to twist your decision, to paint themselves as the victim, to beg for one more chance. But this is where your strength is tested. The strong man does not waver. He does not return to negotiate with the very threat that sought to destroy him. There is a reason pity is dangerous. Toxic people understand the weakness of others, and they exploit it relentlessly. When you show pity, they do not see kindness, they see a door. They study your hesitation, they sense your reluctance, and they prepare their next move. They will play humble, they will act repentant, they will drape themselves in sorrow, all to win back your trust. But once the door is open, even slightly, their poison flows back in, and when it does, it strikes with double the force, because now they know the exact lever that opens you. Pity, then not just weakness. It is the tool they have been waiting for. The nature of finality is not cruelty, it is survival. A snake that bites you once will bite you again if you reach down to lift it. The lesson is simple: you do not lift it. You crush it so it cannot rise again. This requires a mindset cold enough to ignore the pleas, strong enough to stand against the judgments of others who may not see what you see. For many will not understand why you cut them off so decisively. They may accuse you of being harsh, unforgiving, even ruthless. These people do not carry the scars you do. They have not tasted the venom. They do not know what this parasite is capable of. You cannot shape your decision to satisfy their ignorance. You crush for your protection, for your survival, and for the preservation of everything you have built. Think of kingdoms and rulers of the past. When a traitor was exposed, was he left alive to plot again? Was he allowed to return to court, to whisper once more in the ear of power? No. He was eliminated completely, because anything less would be an invitation for betrayal to resurface. You must adopt the same principle. If you tolerate poison, you invite death. If you spare the traitor, you endanger the throne. And in your own life, the throne is your mind, your peace, your ambitions. These must never be left vulnerable to a toxic return. Finality also means emotional discipline. Many fail not because they lack power, but because they allow sentiment to corrupt their strategy. They remember moments of kindness, flashes of connection, or the illusion of closeness the toxic person once created. They confuse manipulation for genuine care, and this confusion makes them hesitate. What you must understand is that everything a toxic person gave you was a tool for control. Every moment of warmth, every favor, every shared secret, it was all designed to bind you closer, to make it harder for you to sever the tie. Do not mistake the chain for affection. It is still a chain, and the only way to be free is to break it completely. Finality is also the only way to ensure respect. Toxic people respect nothing but strength. If you waver, if you give in, if you show softness, they interpret it not as humanity, but as weakness. They will use it against you again and again. But if you cut them off without hesitation, if you act with a resolve so clear that no negotiation is possible, they recognize something even they cannot fight: dominance. And though they may despise you for it, though they may rage against it, they will also fear it. That fear ensures they will not return. So when the moment comes, do not hesitate, do not compromise. Do not allow sentiment or pity to slow your hand. Decide and cut with precision. This is not about cruelty. This is about ensuring that the poison never flows again. Once you have chosen the path of removal, you must walk it to the very end, leaving no trace, no window, no pathway for return. Only then will you be truly free from the shadow they cast. When the mask is stripped away, when every tactic of deceit has been revealed, when their influence has been dismantled, and their weapons turned against them, the toxic person stands as nothing more than a hollow shell. What once seemed like strength was only manipulation. What once appeared as power was only illusion. And the lesson becomes clear: survival does not belong to the one who shows mercy to poison, but to the one who eliminates it completely. To crush without pity, to cut without hesitation, to outthink and outmaneuver with cold precision. This is the path that ensures your freedom. For in the end, the greatest act of strength is not to endure the toxic presence, but to remove it so decisively that it never dares to rise again.